watch in awe as my mom transformed our entire kitchen and dining table into a massive Christmas cookie making factory. She would hand grind the hazelnuts and the pecans and the walnuts in a meat grinder that, if I'm not mistaken, was just an attachment on top of a mason jar, and she would just grind the nuts up like that. I remember this vividly. And she would make Mexican wedding cakes and shortbread and just heaps of different kinds of cookies. And she just basically turned into like a one-woman assembly line. It was incredible to watch. And she would make all these different cookies. I just remember them like all out in a row, and then she would store them between parchment in Tupperwares and put them in the freezer. And then, because she would start weeks or months before Christmas, but it would be torture because there would be these boxes of cookies in the freezer for weeks that we weren't allowed to eat. But we would like sneak one out every once in a while and hope that nobody noticed. It was cruelty. And I now do that very same thing to my girlfriend. Just pile cookies in the freezer downstairs and tell her not to touch them. So mean. It's so mean, but so satisfying at Christmas when you get your tins out and you have all these different cookies that you made and you didn't completely burn yourself out trying to bake them all in like 2 or 3 days right before Christmas. They're still good too, a lot of them. I don't know. I imagine there's some cookies that don't keep well in the freezer, but all the cookies my mom used to make and the ones in this video, they keep really well in the freezer. They'll be totally fine. They're delicious. My mom, she would fill these really festive Christmas tins and these homemade boxes that she would decorate herself with all kinds of beautiful ribbons and flowers and other knickknacks and little things that we had around the house, and she would just make them look incredible, like such a gift, as though the cookies themselves were not enough. You almost feel bad unwrapping her presents to this day because she makes the whole gift look so ornate that you don't want to disassemble it. She makes some of the best holiday decorations, some of the best wrapping, and I'm going to share some of those things with you over the weeks to come. But today it's all about cookies. I share some cookies that my mom used to make and that I later made with her. I share some that are from a Martha Stewart magazine from Christmas, early 90s, I think. I'm pretty sure my mother-in-law at the time got me a subscription to Martha Stewart Living, and the cookies in this one magazine, I still have it. And I used to make them loyally, faithfully, every single Christmas. And then when I switched over to a plant-based diet, I found that it was really easy to veganize them because eggs and butter are really easy to replace with plant-based substitutes. You can buy them everywhere, you can make them really easily. So they translate really well, they freeze really well. And there's also a recipe that I invented, a mulled wine cookie that I am pretty proud of and had to make several attempts at to get it right. Some were not so delicious, but I think this one, I think I've got it now. So you should definitely try it. Tell me if you like it. It might be an acquired taste. I'm telling you too much. Anyways, if you try any of the recipes, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought. If you have any suggestions or comments or questions, or if you'd like to recommend a cookie recipe yourself, I will definitely, I promise you, I will try it. I would love to tell you all that the cookies that I make in this video are super healthy, and you would think that as a nutritionist, I would have taken the time to figure out how to do that, but I have not. And I apologize for that, and maybe I will try to do that at some point. I should at least try. I'll give it a shot, but not today, not in this video. For today, you have to settle for good old-fashioned butter and sugar cookies. One of the easiest to make
cookies just happens to also be my favorite. And my mom calls them Mexican wedding cakes. I think some people call them pecan sandies. And I imagine there's other names for them also. But the ingredients are just butter, a little bit of sugar, ground pecans, and then you sprinkle on some salt and add some flour. And that's the dough. It's that simple, and they are so delicious. They just melt in your mouth. Oh, well, I forgot to mention, there's only a tiny bit of sugar in the actual recipe, but once you've already baked and thoroughly cooled the cookies, you roll them in powdered sugar or confectioner's sugar. So, I mean, it's not no sugar, but I think it still works out to be less than a typical cookie recipe. My mom, of course, used to roll them into these perfect little balls, and they would stay perfectly round even when they baked and came out of the oven. I don't know what her secret is. Maybe she chilled the dough longer than I do before baking them. I should try that. I'm going to try that today. Try another batch and bake them straight from the fridge. Roll them, chill them, roll them, chill them, bake them. Once they come out, like I said, and they're really, really cool, you can either sift sugar onto them, which just does the most beautiful, pretty little sprinkle of powdery white snow on them, or you can just roll them, just hand roll them in a bowl of sugar. Honestly, either way, as soon as you touch them, you're going to kind of have little fingerprints or the prints of whatever you pick them up with anyway. So you don't have to sift them and try and make them look perfect, because they're not going to stay that way. But they're delicious. Like I said, they just melt in your mouth. Definitely my favorite. I tried a rum and eggnog cookie for the first time this year, and I'm not a fan of regular rum and eggnog or any eggnog, honestly. I just think it tastes a bit too eggy. But I also tried for the first time a store-bought plant-based eggnog or oat nog or festive nog or one of them. Anyway, I don't actually remember which one it was. I think it was oat nog. Anyway, it was actually really good. I actually really liked it, but maybe because it didn't have such a strong eggy taste as eggnog seems to. And it wasn't as thick, not quite. It was still creamy, but like not thick. Anyway, speaking of egginess, for this recipe to replace the egg yolks, I just mixed some chickpea flour and water together. The batter definitely had a bit of a chickpea kind of taste before I baked it, but once I baked the cookies, and especially after they were frosted, you definitely can't taste the chickpea. But there's other egg yolk replacers you could use also. But I found this was easy, and also it's kind of has a tiny bit of nutrition as well. So same as most cookie recipes, you cream the butter with sugar. There was granulated sugar and also brown sugar, which I mixed the chickpea yolks into, as well as some eggnog, well, festive nog, not eggnog. And then I had flour and some baking powder, salt, and of course like all the spices that you would use to have like like the nutmeg and the cinnamon, and well, I think that's it. It was nutmeg and cinnamon. I sifted the dry ingredients together. That's a lie. You can see that I'm not sifting at all. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I sift, but other times I just use a wire whisk and just mix it really, really well. So as I said before, I had mixed the chickpea flour mixture and the festive nog into the creamed sugar and butter. And then once that was well integrated, I added the dry ingredients. Never over mix your batter. I know sometimes it's really tempting to do because you want it to be super smooth, but remember that the more you mix the batter or anything with flour in it, the denser it becomes, the more the gluten is sort of activated. So be mindful not to be tempted to try and make it absolutely perfect. Just make sure your ingredients are well mixed. And then I spooned my eggnog, rum and eggnog. Oh, I didn't tell you that I also added rum. I did also add rum to the recipe. You could use a rum extract, or you can just skip that ingredient altogether and just have eggnog cookies without the rum flavor. The frosting was really straightforward, just some plant-based butter and powdered sugar and some more rum flavor and a bit more of the festive nog. And then once the cookies were totally cooled and frosted, I sprinkled a tiny bit more nutmeg and cinnamon on top. They're super tasty. Okay, a really delicious, like even better than the rum and eggnog cookie recipe to me, if you like chocolate and if you like coffee, is the espresso chocolate snow caps. They are so good. And again, just creaming the butter and sugar and then adding a bit of egg replacer. So you can use a flax egg, a chia egg, you can use the powdered mix. All these recipes are on sweetvegan.net, by the way, so I'll put the links to those recipes, or at least the URL address, in the description below in case you want to try any of these. I hope you do. I hope you try these. And then there was some cool brewed espresso. And then blend that really well, of course. We add the sifted flour and unsweetened cocoa powder, some baking powder and a bit of salt. There's just the tiniest bit of non-dairy milk and also some melted chocolate in this recipe. And I forgot to put it in when I was creaming the sugar and butter, but even doing it at the end, it didn't change anything. It still worked out really well. The texture was fine. I would chill the dough a little bit before rolling it, but not for too long or the chocolate will harden quite a bit. And then, unlike the Mexican wedding cakes, we're actually going to roll these little balls in powdered sugar before they go into the oven, which will give it a very cool little snow cap look, hence the name Chocolate Espresso Snow Caps. I really love this process. I like just sitting here sort of methodically rolling each cookie and covering it in sugar. It just feels very meditative. Another cookie that I love to make, not only because it's really tasty, but because it's so versatile, are hazelnut thumbprints. And same thing, just sugar and butter creamed together. Sometimes I use an egg replacer, sometimes I don't. It depends on what I'm gonna do with it. But basically it's like a standard cookie recipe, just sugar and butter, flour, a bit of salt, some vanilla. And for this one, once the dough is really well mixed, you roll them into balls just like the other 2 ball cookies, except for this time you then roll the ball into an egg replacer, wet egg replacer mix, and then into ground hazelnuts. And once you've done that, you put it on the cookie sheet and just make a literal thumbprint in it. You bake them, keep an eye on them. If you feel like the little thumbprints are filling back up, you can just use the end of a wooden spoon and just kind of poke the holes back down. And afterwards you can fill them with jam. I like to fill mine with cherry jam or apricot jam, or alternatively Nutella. And then it's just really a Nutella cookie because it's a hazelnut cookie full of chocolate hazelnut. And the recipe that I invented last year or the year before, I think, it looks really weird when you're trying to blend the butter and sugar in with the wine, or if you don't want to use wine, you can use a pomegranate juice, a cranberry juice, or a purple grape juice. Don't worry if it doesn't fully blend, because it's just not going to. The wine and the juice and the fat of the butter just doesn't fully integrate, and that's okay. Just try and mix it as well as you can. And then you add your mix of all-purpose flour and baking soda, cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger and cloves. It's really a mulled wine flavor. And it's super tasty. I love it so much. But this is the only one of the cookies that you're actually going to roll out the dough. So for this one, you really want to make sure that your dough is well chilled. You might have noticed that I'm doing all of this mixing manually, and you can use a food processor or a mixer. I'm all for it. I love my KitchenAid that I inherited from my grandmother. I probably use it almost every week. But I've been studying the blue zones, and what I thought was really interesting is that one of the things that people living up to and over 100 years old have in common is physical activity. And they're not doing high intensity workouts or hitting the gym every day. They're just walking most days and taking the stairs and doing their housework and their cooking and their cleaning manually. And if you would rather use an appliance, go for it. But if you are not used to kneading your own dough or mixing, I highly recommend just trying it once. You will see all of the muscles that you use every time you do it, and it's pretty amazing how much of a workout it actually is. I wrap my dough in saran wrap and flatten it into a disc and put that in the refrigerator to chill. We've been using the same roll of saran wrap for like years. We bought this huge jumbo roll of it, and then we just are still using it. But if anyone knows of an eco-friendly, vegan-friendly replacement for that, I haven't found one that keeps the food moist. Everyone that I've tried seems to still let enough air in that some of the dough dries out a little bit. Once it's chilled, I would put it on a lightly floured surface and roll it and cut it into whatever shapes your heart desires. And then just before putting it in the oven, I sprinkle it with a bit of turbinado sugar, just because it gives it that little crunchy sweetness on the top.
I hope you enjoyed this, and I thank you so much for watching it. It means so much to me. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing and enabling notifications by clicking on the little bell thing wherever it is. If you are a Patreon subscriber, I thank you so much for believing in what I'm doing and for helping to make this channel possible. And if you are interested in working with me one-on-one for nutrition and natural health, the booking link is in the description below. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take good care of yourselves.